What's happening, guys? This is James Blonde with MMOhuts.com. This time we're taking a first look at Heva Clonia Online from OG Planet. This game is a 3D anime MMORPG with a Pokemon-style pet collection, cloning, and evolution system. And as a few days ago, the game transitioned into open beta, available to everyone free to play, so I'll spend a short time looking into the game, checking out a lot of its major features. Alright, so starting out, the game does give you the option for 3 classes, but you don't actually establish a job until you reach level 10. From there, you can choose to take the Warrior's Path, the Hunter's Path, or the Magician's Path. And all these classes are your typical archetypes for that class, but until level 10, you're a novice or noob, whatever you want to call it, and you can pick up and use any weapons or gear you like to get a feel for what class you might want to work towards. Granted, there weren't many other weapons besides swords, spears, knuckles, or I think 1 rifle through the levels 1 through 10, so if you're looking to be a magician, I guess you have to wait a little bit. And just like your standard anime MMORPG, the job's split up once around level 30 and again around level 50. So as far as customization goes in the beginning, you've got a choice in gender, about 8 or 9 different options for hair type, hair color of course, face type, which like most of the time in games like this, it just changes the eyes around a little bit, but you've got some choices for your shirt and pants, all of which seem to be fairly basic looking and doesn't really matter much because the first bit of gear you get looks slightly better than these options anyway. And so after you create your character, the game puts you through an almost qualification style tutorial where there's a lot of untranslated audio dialogue that actually sounds pretty funny.
형제들이여 모두 태워버려라 모든 것을 태워버리자.
But the nice thing is, it lets you experience a higher level character's skills, which in this case, the way you can expand on the skills is actually pretty cool. You activate your skills by default using the A or S key, and you can chain the skills by following the arrow keys that pop up on the screen. And I can imagine once you have a large amount of skills, fighting enemies can start to feel like a Dance Dance Revolution game in this case. Unfortunately, there isn't much of a combo style system with the early level skills, the common skills. Only one of the skills before level 10 has this extended feature. Either way, that's the coolest aspect of the combat system, really. I mean, otherwise, it's point and click. Select your target with Z, auto attack with X, jump and double jump using C, spacebar is the action button for looting, and starting chat with NPCs, moving with the arrow keys, or by clicking with the mouse. And by the time you're finished with the tutorial, the controls actually feel pretty natural, but they can also be completely rearranged, which the nice thing is that you can use nearly any key as a quick slot. Like for example, the tutorial is the default and the health and mana is on D and F, and I kind of like that, so for a little while I set mine up like that until I gained a little bit more skills. There already looks to be support for gamepads, and it actually looks pretty easy to set up that loadout depending on what you want to do. And I think this game actually is set up to where it would be pretty fun to play on a gamepad. You would at least have better control movement around with the camera opposed to, you know, with the keyboard and mouse. You might want to choose to use the arrow keys to move around, therefore you don't have much control over your camera at that point. So after the tutorial, you spend about 3 minutes in the town area before you pick up your first quest that leads you into an almost dungeon style area with mobs, lots of mobs. You'll notice that your progression through these areas is pretty linear feeling, with mobs getting higher level as you get closer to the end, and you can kind of see that here from the mini-map. And I've got to say that the environments in the game aren't very impressive. It's a 3D MMORPG, but the draw distance is pretty short, and the graphics are somewhat dated, and you'll find that since it's a little bit easier to play using the arrow keys to move, you don't ever really change the camera angle much with the mouse. But if you do, you'll notice that there isn't really much to look at anyway, unless you're in the town area. And I'd also say the same thing about the in-instance NPCs. A ton of them look like they're related to Luigi for some reason, and they just have different names. The quests are somewhat repetitive, but the major feature of the game gets introduced to you pretty quickly, which of course is the clone/pet system. So this game allows players to clone the DNA of the mobs that they kill and make them pets that will fight alongside them. It's not quite as interesting as, you know, capturing dragons in Dragon's Prophet, for example, but it works similar to crafting systems in most games. You get DNA by killing mobs, and there are different drop chances based on your level in comparison to the monster's level, so it makes it somewhat challenging to collect them all, so to speak. And they even have a Pokedex. You gotta check this out. There are definitely a lot of them that you can find, and their DNA doesn't come along very often, but you can clone your own pets by finding the cloning master and adding the DNA along with a scroll to incubate. Now, the clones have a ranking system from E to A, which is essentially their rarity, and it also determines their skills and capabilities. And there are also different types of clones, anywhere from attackers, guardians, healers. It's almost like a class for them. Now, you can increase their ranking by evolving them by mixing two of the same clones by finding more DNA, which can actually be pretty hard if you're higher level than the mob that you're trying to find DNA from. But there's a lot of other ways to get the DNA or clones you're looking for. Plenty of players have set up shop in the town selling gear and nearly everything else. But it's pretty nice that you have your little pet fight alongside you, and it's kind of like a, you know, a Pikachu I choose you sort of thing. They've got their own skills and attributes. It's almost like having another piece of gear in terms of attributes. I mean, some of them provide health regeneration, attack damage buffs, things like that. And they also have their own health bar, so you've got to spam their health potions every once in a while when they get low, but you can also command them how they attack, whether they manually attack enemies, attack alongside you, or don't attack at all and they just stay where they are. Not to mention you can add items to your clones as they level up to further add to their attributes. So after going through what seems to be a really long dungeon and reaching level 10, you're back in the town area and you can choose your class and begin advancing towards that role and get a new skill tree altogether with a large amount of skills to advance through beyond just the common skills, which is nice. So there's actually quite a bit you can see here that you can advance through. But honestly, other than that, that's a basic rundown of the game's features you'll run to in the early half of the game. Of course, there's a guild system, and players are able to explore dungeons as they get past level 10. You can definitely see that the game is really based around players seeking out and collecting the various creatures and cloning them. Sort of a you set your own adventure style game. And currently there's no cash up in the game, but more than likely it'll have costume items, EXP potions, maybe even some random chances at certain DNAs. They're already in full swing with their Halloween event. Apparently if you collect a certain amount of red or blue candy, you get a chest that gives you a costume item, sort of like this one here. But anyway guys, once again, the game is in open beta now if you're wanting to check it out. Either way, for more information about Heva Clonia Online, head over to the game profile at MMOhuts.com. And until next time guys, that's going to be it from me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.